What's next?
Oh, well, everybody know who I want next. I want Terence Crawford next.
Hey, man, you better stop that cat. Errol Spence Jr. puts Terence Bud Crawford on his grocery list. What do I mean? Well, you got to find out in this video. What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Errol Spence, he's a man of the hour. Great fight week. Great night, great fight. Shout out to Showtime, CBS, Al Heyman, PBC, Man Down Promotions. Errol Spence, you know, big shout out to YORDENIS UGAS for stepping up, risking it all. It was a 3-belt unification over the weekend on Showtime pay-per-view, and Errol Spence came out on top. Early in the fight, he was tested. UGAS was game, trying to catch him, time him, counter. But more on that later. Errol Spence posted this graphic, and it's him in a grocery store. It's obviously a Photoshop. And he has all 3 of his belts in a basket, like a shopping cart. And then the zoomed in section of the graphic shows the champions he's already beat and crossed off his list. Now we're in the 4-belt era currently, so that means there's only one more belt that he needs, and that's the WBO belt, which is now claimed and has been claimed by Terence Crawford since the Jeff Horn fight. So it says there's a tick box next to the 4 names, and 3 of them have been ticked off. KELL, BROOK. So basically, realistically, in my fight with Errol, he hit me in the eye, and he hit me with a chocolate right hand brownie, basically, right? Shawn Porter, which he beat in a unification in 2019, just before his car wreck. And that was for the WBC. He already had the IBF belt, beating KELL BROOK in Sheffield, UK. Then he fought in the Staples Center, now known as the Crypto Arena, and he fought Shawn Porter. I was at that fight. Crazy fight. Very fun to watch. And he unified, dropping Shawn Porter later in the fight, which was my fight of the year that particular year. And then, of course, as I just mentioned at the beginning, Yordenis Ugas of Cuba, coming off the best win of his whole career against none other than Manny Pacquiao from General Santos. I believe my fight was The only remaining belt is Terence Crawford. So Errol Spence has been trolling and aggressively calling out Terence Crawford after he cleaned up his side of the street. I think Errol Spence is owed a big apology from the world of boxing. Here's why. A lot of people, countless times, have doubted Errol Spence Jr. A lot of people recently, they want to pick sides. I understand boxing is a passionate sport. It's a niche sport. But you got man fans and radical fans. And it's ironic to me, you have fans who have acted almost as if Errol Spence has ducked Terence Crawford, or he's not willing to fight fire. But this concept never really made sense to me because he has a better resume than Terence Crawford. So in what world do we look at a guy who's done heavier lifting and fought the better world-class names in better positions at the time he fought them, and look at that person as if they're looking for easy way out, shortcuts? Meanwhile, Terence Crawford, he's a brilliant fighter. He's a very skilled fighter. But realistically, his claim to fame is moving up more divisions and being undisputed at 140, which is great. And these are great milestones and accolades for his career. However, it doesn't have any bearing on where you're at in the welterweight division. What do I mean? Like, for example, Teofimo Lopez, he just lost to George Kambosos, who's now getting ready to fight Devin Haney in a big fight in Australia. Teofimo lost at 135 pounds. In boxing, that's the lightweight division. So Teofimo said he can't make 135. He said he's too big. He's outgrown the division. Wompty. So Teofimo's now moving up to 140. So even though Teofimo was 1 belt away from undisputed because he never fought Devin Haney and he had most of the belts, all of those accomplishments don't add up to a hill of beans in the 140-pound division. You got guys like Subriel Matias, he's a beast. Regis Prograis is a beast. right? Josh Taylor was there, but I think he's moving up, etc. And you got some good guys there. So they're not going to look at Teofimo and be awestruck because he was a unified champion in a whole nother division. Because the way I know a lot of boxers personally, and the way these boxers think in general, they're insanely competitive more often than not. I'm not saying every single one. Some fighters maybe lack drive or hunger at certain spaces in their career. But by and large, boxers, they like to compete, and they don't feel like this person can beat them. And they have that, that's what makes them great. Heart, determination, the willingness to go through fire and, not bend or budge, things like that. Desire. So that being said, these fighters at 140, they're not looking at Teofimo, oh man, he had a ton of belts at 135. None of that matters. And that's kind of the same thing with Terence Crawford. Those are great accomplishments when you're in the ballot for Hall of Fame and stuff like that. You'd be like, oh, I was undisputed. But so often people bring up stuff that really doesn't have any bearing on the current situation, like Lomachenko, top rank, bunch of old media fans and stuff like that. They said, oh, Lomachenko has 2 gold medals. Okay, that's what got him here, but the pro game is completely different. So the pro game has really nothing to do with him having 2 gold medals. That's just his prior experience, Like if you worked at Microsoft, that's experience that may land you a job at Apple. But if you're working for Apple, you're working for Apple. You got to abide by their rules and you got to hit their quotas. It doesn't matter what the quota, if you had lighter quotas to meet or thresholds or whatnot at Microsoft, you're at Apple now. And that's kind of the difference between the AMs and the pro. Some people aren't successful pros. Some people, like Errol Spence, he was a successful amateur, but he didn't medal at the Olympics, but he's a rock star in the pro game. Same thing with Terence Crawford. He didn't go to the Olympics, but he's a top pound for pound fighter right now. So I really never understood this. Both guys are great guys. They're great ambassadors for the sport. They both can fight. It's really a pick 'em fight. But there's this narrative from old media mostly. I'm not saying that's the only person, but that Errol Spence is ducking, but he's had the harder road. And some of it he caused. And speaking of road, he was in a nasty car crash. So just listen to this one point. And if you ever hear somebody in boxing steal this point, you know where it came from. How is the man, Errol Spence, who flew through a car, which forced him to have to go through dental procedures to get veneers because he fractured, chipped, cracked, broke teeth, right? Had to go through physical therapy, had to go through, rehabilitation, learn how to walk again, use your motor skills, heal your wounds, aches, sores, pains, right? How is that guy who went through that and then was supposed to fight Manny Pacquiao, and then that fight got canceled due to a detached retina? How does he, in the space of, since Crawford has been to welterweight and since Errol Spence has been to champion at welterweight, how does the guy who's been absent, how has he done more with all these potential like mishaps and shortcomings? You got to really ask that. So Errol Spence fought Shawn Porter in 2019. Crawford fought him last year, at the end of last year. Errol Spence fought KELL Brook when he was undefeated at welterweight in 2017 or whatever. And then Crawford fought him in 2020, 3 years later. So how is the person who had all these obstacles, so to speak, that kept him out of the ring, inactivity twice from the car wreck and the detached retina? So that's a long, and then there's nothing that's been wrong with Terence Crawford. He's been 100% healthy for what we know. I'm not saying he's never had like aches and pains and stuff, but we know he's never went through a car wreck, or a publicized car wreck, right? He didn't have these long inactivity spells because he was inactive and unable to compete. And then yet and still Errol Spence is still doing the heavier lifting. That doesn't really make sense to me. That's like somebody, working at a job for 90 days and then one person is injured and then they only work for 2 weeks, but the person that worked for 2 weeks put out more output, converted more sales, and just basically did their job better and at a higher level with far lesser time to do it. You know what I'm saying? And coming off an injury. I mean, that's crazy. And nobody's putting that in perspective. People keep saying, oh, Errol, he's ducking and stuff like that. But you can't really make that make sense. One guy, to our knowledge, has been healthy, and he still had inactivity a little bit because his promoter had him fighting one time a year. KELL Brook, he only fought one time that year. Shawn Porter only fought one time that year. But that wasn't due to any underlying cause or medical reasons or detached retinas, injuries and car wreck, anything like that. Errol Spence went through all of that and still came back and fought better and bigger names and guys coming off of better performances and better, situations than Terence Crawford. And then now he did everything he said he was going to do. He's putting him on the shopping list, and he's posting it, and he's putting out shirts and stuff like that. So we'll see what's next in terms of the business, but I like to put perspective on my conversations in boxing. Subscribe to my channel. I'm the best in the business, and I'm out. Are you tired of your YouTube videos not getting any views? Well, consider TubeBuddy. I've used TubeBuddy for years to scale up my YouTube channel. Now we're sitting over 200,000 subscribers. TubeBuddy is a browser extension that offers a ton of built-in productivity and time-saving services to take your channel to the next level. Use my link in the description to get started with TubeBuddy and level up your channel faster. We working. The future is now. The Hibernation 5s by Kenichi Bear. Hybrid gaming and lifestyle headphones. Out of the box, you can connect to any console or PC. Bluetooth ready with a low latency USB adapter, color RGB, and extreme bass mode. The Hibernation 5s adjust to you. Whether you need a gaming, travel, gym, or lifestyle headphones, the Hibernations got you covered. The new Hibernation 5s, link in the description. Customize the way you hear the world. Welcome to the nation.